first of all, it's the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards that Arizona has, which is very similar, basically the same thing. And we definitely need standards. Those standards apply only to 2 subjects, math and English. I think we need a lot of other standards as well. Now keep in mind, we don't want standards that dictate curriculum or textbooks or how to teach or anything like that. They're outcomes. What do the students know? Like by 2nd grade, they can count by 2s, they can count by 5s, they can count by 10s, they can count by hundreds, things of that nature. If we don't have some sort of standards, then our schools will trail behind. Right now, we're behind literally dozens of other countries in the outcomes for our students. We're ahead of Guatemala, we're ahead of Italy, we're ahead of Colombia, but we're behind so many others, and we need to do better. There's another subject that sadly is not even covered in our schools. To me, it's a crime that our students go through school and they never have to take a course in personal finance. They never learn about credit cards or mortgages or the magical power of compound interest or the tyranny of compound interest when you carry credit card debt. And we're not preparing them to live in the world if we don't teach them that. Now, why isn't that in our curriculum? I realize that's not anything to do with the standards that you've requested, because they're only math and English, and those are certainly important subjects. Those would be the 2 most important in my estimation. So I definitely support having standards. We need to evolve and improve those standards. We need feedback from teachers and parents and the children to make sure that the standards are appropriate, but they also need to be in line with what the rest of the world is doing so our kids can grow up and compete.
Well, David just told you we're not following Common Core standards, so, but here we are. We just got finished saying we want high-tech jobs, and we want to be able to employ the future generation. If we have no standards whatsoever, then I guess we're going to go back to the employer giving the test when somebody comes through the door years ago. I mean, and I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're truly concerned about education, to make sure that we put out a ready workforce. So how do you graduate engineers that don't know what the job's all about? How do you graduate? How does a student that comes out of high school get a job? A lot of them, I'm kind of mystified that they can't count change. You got to wait for the machine to tell you. I mean, that's so. I don't care what we call something. I mean, if people are hung up about whatever, but this is all about community. We have community school boards. We have the people in the state. I think we're smart enough to be able to get some standards put together that will show the rest of the world that the students that are graduating from our high schools and our universities are employable. Otherwise, they're not. And then we go back and we have a system of who trains. It's going to be the employer once again training the employee, and it's not going to happen in today's environment. There's a ready labor pool out there that's competing with us on a day-to-day basis. So I really get mystified at the fact that we get hung up on something. When I graduated from high school years ago, they had Regents exams, and if you didn't pass them, you didn't move on. And if you don't pass the test today, I guess you shouldn't move on. And that's why I supported Governor Brewer with the move on when ready with respect to the 3rd grade. I mean, we can't. It's disgraceful to have students not being able to read by the time they get through that. And I'm happy to say I talked to the superintendent of the Kyrene district a few months ago, and all the students in the Kyrene district are actually moving on from 3rd grade, which I think is remarkable, and we should be applauding those successes as opposed to, creating some failures in the future. So, whatever we want to call it, I'm happy, but I think it's got to come from the local level, and we've got to make sure that there's some standardization so that the person that graduates in a Peoria school or graduates in a Chandler school or graduates in a Kyrene school has the same opportunities. And that's what it's all about, the opportunities of the future for kids.
I'm going to address 2 parts of this. The first part is the PARCC test. Our school system, our public school system, is still fixated on the idea that we must use an assessment tool to determine what the progress is of our students. That's fine. The problem we have is that the way that the curriculum is taught to the level of the assessment rather than to the objective. So I remember teaching at the university level, and I always taught to the objective. And to what we already heard, one of the things that I saw kids coming into the university was that they didn't have any critical thinking skills. And so I've always considered that to be a key component to be able to function as a human being in the adult world. And I'd like to see that. I would also say that my son just finished his freshman year at Mount Point High School, and he did take a financial planning class, and so he does understand all this stuff. He knows how to manage his own bank account. He knows how to do investments and things like that from this program he took. The second part is the Common Core itself. And I use that term with quotes around it in respect to what my colleagues have said here. But Common Core or college and career readiness is a guideline. Is it the best guideline? Well, we don't know yet. We know that the implementation process probably wasn't the right way to do something like that. But clearly we could have looked at this a little better. Do we need a standard? Yeah, I think so. I think that we have to work from a standard. I'm not sure that we can succeed educationally if we don't have a guideline to go by. It's not a baseline, it's a guideline. And then I think the curriculum itself should be defined locally.
I trust Arizona teachers to govern and oversee and teach our children and develop the curriculum. I have 3 children, all college graduates now, and we were able to work with the teachers and administrators of the schools that they attended, all here in District 18, to craft curriculum specific to them so they could achieve their goals. I think as parents, everyone realizes and recognizes that their kids are all completely different, and we all maybe wish we had a recipe book that we could follow, and that would be great. But I like the school opportunities and the school choices, and the parents are the #1 educator of the children, and their ability to work with the teachers in the classroom, I think, is key. Should we have standards relative to what they need to know at certain levels to move on? I think they should. I think there are basic levels that children should have to be able to move on to the next grade. But I also believe that, additional choices in some of the charter schools and the home schools, and being able to flex schools relative to the children's specific needs and capabilities is key as well.
I want to touch on something that John brought up, and that's the critical thinking aspect of all of this, and I think David may have alluded to it as well. I'm a professor of practice in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at ASU, and David over the years, and it's kind of interesting, but the critical thinking thing is enormous. When you get students that come into the classroom and you assign them a project, and I do this intentionally in mine. You probably have done something in yours, and maybe in your time as well. Is that I'll be very loose on the ground rules, and they'll come in and they'll want the structure, and right? Yeah. How do you want this paper? Do you want, by the time you finish it, they want you writing it for them, so to speak, and that's all part of that critical element side of this, and I tell them it's your work product. So what you want to present to me is what it is, because I look at an employer doing that down the road, and so I'm trying to prepare them to basically get to the next level. In my case, it's police officers and whatever. So you definitely want them more in the critical thinking role, because out in the street you're going to have to evolve. I mean, it's going to happen. And so I don't know if as they're going through the system, there are classes, I guess, where an English class is going to tell you how to put the paper together. But my class is not going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to look at the results of what you put out. So And I think some of these standards that are put in place are changing education a little bit. And I think maybe a little bit to the better. But I'm not the guy that says give everybody a trophy and 1 and 1 equals 22. That's not where I'm coming from. Mine is, and I think if I got the sense of where everybody else was coming from as well, is that we want to put out people that can operate at a level that they're expected to operate based upon the degree set or education set that they have. I don't know how everybody else feels.
No, we want our kids to be able to perform and be able to work in a competitive environment and succeed, and raise the bar for them, and have opportunities where you can excel in this and you can excel in this, and have teachers that are motivated and fired up and incentivized to that end.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to add one thing. Very good point, but it's hard to incentivize a teacher who has to work to an assessment and not to an objective. And I spend a lot of time with teachers at Kyrene Elementary School as a board member there, and I hear their frustrations on a regular basis about that one thing. So, it would be great if we had teachers and parents involved in deciding what curriculum should be, but I don't see it happening in the district. I don't see people stepping up to get involved like they should. It's left up to the schools to do.
It's all about the teachers. If you have good teachers, you'll have good students. When I never taught to an assessment, I never taught to an objective. I never used a textbook in my classes. So like Bob mentioned, the students didn't have, some of them wanted structure, but by the time they got through, they realized, oh, I can think, I can do this myself, because I gave them open-ended problems where in the beginning of the semester I would see a lot of questions on the internet posed, obviously, by my students saying, does anyone have a program that does this? Which is what I had assigned for them to do. And of course, it was something I had made up, so there was no program out there to do it, and eventually they had to figure it out themselves. And as a result, they can think. They go out and they have great jobs.